Hello and welcome. Thank you for all of you who are joining us here today. My name is Patrick Lora, and I am the Director of Customer Marketing here with GiveSmart by Community Brands, and we're thrilled to have all of you with us. Today is episode 2 in our Blueprint of Success fundraising series, where our hope is to, over the next few episodes here, is to put together some in-depth fundraising areas, not only to address each topic, but also by the end of these 12 episodes to have a complete blueprint that organizations throughout the country can use as they examine their fundraising efforts. And we are big believers that you don't want to hear from us or me, but rather from your peers within the development space. And today we are thrilled to be joined by some amazing individuals who have graciously given up their time to spread the knowledge. And those individuals, as you see on screen here, are Daniel Meyer from My Friend's Place based out of Los Angeles, California, Noelle Hacker from Renesting Project based out of Bossier City, Louisiana, which hopefully I got correct. And then Susanna Crawford, who is not only our community manager with GiveSmart, but also on a board of an organization based out of the Charlotte area. So all three of you, thanks for joining us and giving up your time here today.
Happy to. This will be fun.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
It's going to be good. It's a true A team, and we don't have Jeeves who you can ask questions to today. We have Kathy instead. So the fifth member of our panel here is Kathy, who behind the scenes will be the one inserting different resources into the chat button that you see, as well as kind of funneling the questions to the panelists here. So please, throughout the conversation, do use that question and answer function and keep an eye on the chat resources. So in terms of format for today's call, in case any of you were not with us last week for the first episode, is what we want to have is truly more of a discussion-based format. So what we're going to do is mix between some kind of on-screen examples and a PowerPoint to kind of put some frames around things and then really get into a discussion here with our three panelists. So we need audience participation in order to make sure that the content resonates. So please do send questions, early and often. And if there is anything that we can't get to during today's call, we'll make sure to follow up after the fact. And I'll start by preemptively answering the number one question we get every single time, which is we will be recording today's call in full and sending out via email later today, including any of the resources that we'll share with you guys. So if you do have to jump off or something comes up, please do not worry. So with that, we will get into things here. So as I mentioned, today is episode 2 in our series and overall. And so, sorry about that. It wouldn't be any fun if we made it perfect. So overall, what we are going to be doing here today is going into recurring fundraising campaigns. So as you should do with anything that might be an ambiguous term to some, is start with defining. And then, so what exactly do we mean when we talk about recurring fundraising campaigns? Examples such as what our three panelists have shared, and then some considerations, because nothing in life is one size fit all. So if you and your organization are contemplating doing some of these things, what are the things that are good to consider? And then again, questions throughout the call. So if it is, it's hard to imagine that maybe people wouldn't have lived in Zoom or other meeting platforms over the past year, but just to make sure everybody enhances their experience, the 3 most common tips that we have people send us is to, if you want to see all of our lovely panels here today, is use the gallery mode that you see on screen. And if you do have any questions, again, the question and answer section and then that chat, and we'll get going. So to start off, what are we talking about with recurring fundraising campaigns? We grabbed this straight from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which is that it's an adjective and talking about occurring repeatedly, happening or appearing multiple times. So next week is the single occurrence campaign, such as a signature event or gala. What we're talking about today are things that organizations do throughout the course, whether it's throughout the course of a year or throughout the season. So things that whether they build upon each other or stuff of that nature. And in terms of why is this a topic that we wanted to bring front and center, and why these three individuals gave up their time to talk about their experiences with, is because the numbers said this is a very evolving trend. So we pulled this straight from our database over the past couple of years here. And both Daniel and Noelle fit into this kind of bottom category of organizations that are running 5+ campaigns in a year. And as we'll get into in the content today, not all things are for the same purpose. Some things are going to be from community engagement or, expanding your constituent base. Others are going to be more revenue specific, but, and we'll dive into the content. But the reason that we wanted to bring it front and center and make it a conversation for everyone is because it's a trend that we're seeing. And I think an exciting one, because I think it lends itself to a lot of creativity and things of that nature. So that's the conversation we're getting into. So it's enough of me talking to kind of start things off. So, Suzanne, I'll toss the first one to you. When you think of recurring campaigns, you talk to members of the community or other things, what sticks out, and if it's a different definition, maybe kind of what sticks out in this area to you.
Sure, yeah. If I haven't gotten to meet you yet or talk to you one-on-one, I spend my days talking with organizations and finding best practices and then putting it back out through webinars and such. And we're finding that more and more is happening, especially during 2020, but a lot of this has been happening before that. And there's kind of two ways that I'm seeing this going. One is that there was a gap. There was something that, during the whole year, they needed to fill revenue or they needed to engage people. And so they've created either something really fun that creates community engagement. They've created something around their mission to be able to get education out there, or they've created some sort of revenue driver, right, to keep things going. So that's one way we've seen. And then we've also seen as well people who were doing in-person events, maybe quarterly, bi-weekly, biannually, whatever that is, and they've had to make a pivot of sorts. So they could no longer do these, round tables in person or do these different events. And so being able to take that virtually is what we're seeing now. And being able to do that successfully is really what we're about.
Great. Daniel and Noelle, Dan, I'll start with you, just going in alphabetical order. I know we'll get into in a little bit some of the specific things you guys have done. But I'm curious, for My Friend's Place, how do you guys approach this in terms of really examining something that, hey, this is our flagship, we do once a year, versus some efforts that maybe we want to have continuously occurring throughout the course of a year?
Totally. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. And I'm super excited to talk about this. So at My Friend's Place, in years past, we had a big flagship event in the spring. That's our big annual gala. It's a big fundraiser for us, 600, 650 people in a room, sparkly, wonderful. We get a lot of information out about what we do. We have our gala be pretty mission focused, but also, right, like it's a gala. It's supposed to be really fun. There's music, entertainment, and auction. So that definitely serves like one purpose. And we know that like a lot of our community wants to engage in that way. But it's also always been really important to us to bring our community on along with us in our learning as we grow as an organization and develop our capacity to do our work as best as we can. And we really, firmly believe that an empowered and educated community is in the end going to serve our mission much better than one that's maybe just motivated through giving. So for us, a lot of our sort of recurring events throughout the year might be less focused on fundraising or like the bottom line, even if there is a fundraising component, and really be more focused on, again, like bringing our community along with us so that we can, have that like empathetic, empowered, engaged, and educated community that's going to support us through all of our endeavors. And at the end of the day, just be there as best they can for our young people.
It's great to hear. And I think, Noelle, is it similar for you and your organization in terms of kind of some of the things that Daniel mentioned there? And obviously what's nice is you're both, joked about this yesterday, you're both LA based, but very different in terms of the two. But I'm curious, how some things that he said are, is similar to what you all are doing, or kind of maybe where it differs in that regard.
Well, ours started in the same place. We reached out to GiveSmart and for our annual gala. I think we did 3 years worth, and that was all it was used for. And it seemed like such a powerful tool that we weren't using we just weren't using it as much as it could be used. So I started trying to find a way to back us into that. okay, how do we have this great tool? How do we use it in different ways? And our monthly pop-up auction was born because we are a community furniture bank, and we receive donations all the time of gently used furniture and household items that we can't use for our clients. So we needed to be good stewards of those donations and morph them into something else. So that was the catalyst, but it grew from there. And what we didn't expect was one thing we're challenged with is people saying, didn't know about y'all, didn't know where you were. Well, as people would bid on items each month, and ours, I won't go into all the details about it, but they had to come pick up their winnings. And so that drew people to our warehouse. Number one, they learned where we were. We were able to pass that information that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to reach them. And we reached a different group of people. The people that came to our gala afforded a substantial ticket and bid on expensive items. Our pop-up auction is the other end of the spectrum. So we were able to target different groups of people and same outcome.
Yeah, that is great to hear. And I think that is, I'm curious, I mean, and really for anybody, don't need to direct to a specific person, but one of the questions that I was curious to ask all of you is do you segment people differently? So if you look at your entire community, you know, hey, our gala, we want to invite all these people, you know, and do those get included some of these other things? But, you know, now I'm more curious is, do these efforts also bring in new people that maybe because of, you know, whether it's price point or some of these kind of things, you know, has that also proven to be, you know, a way of kind of expanding your reach and bringing in new donors and kind of supporters through these processes as well?
For us, yes. Yes.
For us as well, I think one of the things that's been really great this year, right, is like, you know, obviously without being able to be in person, without being able to have volunteers on site, it can be harder to make connections. But, you know, and I think people have talked about this in different spaces, but when you're doing something that is primarily virtual, primarily online, it can not only extend your reach, but also just like change its orientation. If you're reaching out, you know, through a virtual medium, it may engage people, a different type of audience than you would engage, let's say, with your print mailers, with an in-person event. And it affords some flexibility that's been really, I think, useful for us. And certainly in terms of you know, whenever we're planning an event, we're thinking, okay, who is the target audience here, right? And so, you know, that sort of in conjunction with this virtual flexibility, I think has enabled us to, in certain ways, certainly expand our community as we're targeting. And I think one other thing is it affords, when you're doing a recurring campaign, sort of like what you guys are doing, right? This recurring series, you're able to reach out to more partners and highlight people who are not necessarily, let's say wouldn't speak at a gala, right? Like you might not have, for example, we did a panel that was an educational panel that we invited someone who's an expert on youth homelessness in Los Angeles, an academic, to speak. I think most galas probably don't have an academic speaking, right? But that's such a valuable voice to bring to our community. So I think like being able to highlight different voices in different spaces for different people is, it's great. I think it's a win-win-win for us for sure.
No, that is a very good call across the board.
Yeah, that's great. And I think from the interviews and conversations that I've been having as well, it seems that sometimes these reoccurring campaigns just happen kind of by accident a little bit, where someone was just like, you know, I tried this, right? Like we wanted to do a panel and we wanted to do a pop-up auction or whatever it is, or a bingo night. And we tried it and we found out that it did expand our reach, and we found out that we did get new donors, and we found out that, you know, all these other people out there are interested, and now the grandma from Palm Springs can join us, right? So that's what I found is a lot of people started these reoccurring by just trying one thing and realizing that it was doing this, and that's why they did another and another. And we'll get to some of those examples too of those.
No, that is a great question. And the kind of as our segue into some of the examples is as we're looking at it, Noelles Organization started their first of these recurring in January of 2019, kind of doing these monthly pop-up auctions. And Daniel was actually joined us for another webinar on tangential topic about 6 months or so, but kind of does these discussion series. So before we kind of look at the specifics of it, I'm curious from an inception standpoint to ask each of the two of you, building off what Susanna, was it planned, or is it kind of, hey, we had a concept and we didn't really know, or we thought it would be valuable, we wanted to try overall? Because I think it's a definitely an interesting topic.
Well, I can say, don't be afraid to try. The commitment, we did several trial runs to see what fit. And we made mistakes along the way, but I would caution people not to be afraid to give it a try. You already have the service. We already had the service. There was no big output of cash. We just needed to fine tune what we needed to do for the pop-up, and we're still improving and making it better, but just try that first one. It's recurring, yes, but at the beginning, you're not locked into any particular recurrence. That kind of comes as you go along. Ours is monthly now.
That is a great point. So with that, we will, now that we've played the academic role here, is we will go back to kind of showing some more specific examples of what exactly we're talking about, and I think also put a little visualization to some of the things that the teams here have done a great job of. So these are just one of many. So they're by no means should this come across as the only types of things that organizations are doing or potentially could be doing in terms of some of these recurring campaigns. But in terms of the most trends, I think that we've seen, and we'll spend a little bit of time going in depth on some of the particulars here, is doing some sort of annual fund. Obviously that's recurring annually based, but as well as some membership drives throughout the course of the year. And for each organization, the nuances are obviously going to be a little bit different, but I think, and this is one of the things Daniel touched on from a virtual medium that I think we've seen and people be able to do at a rate and the creativity level that wasn't possible in person, is these kind of beer and virtual wine tastings, or there's been a few virtual tequila tastings in there and stuff. But I think, not only bringing in good engagement from your community, but also engaging some sponsors who, maybe are sort of your spirit sponsors or something like that. And if you don't have a physical in person, as well as kind of bingo and trivia and poker series, that whether it's, we've seen some people do it for every holiday that comes up in a calendar year, or they'll do it, as a monthly tournament or throughout the course of, semester, if it's a school, something like that. And then kind of panel discussions or discussion series, similar to what we are all doing here today, but getting into different topics. And I think of all of them, this is the most emerging trend that we've noticed, in particular, I think over the past, 3 months here in 2021, is people find ways to have discussions with their community and do some different things. And so I know that's one thing I'm excited, Daniel, to get your perspective on. And then these pop-up events, which is what Noelle and her organization have done so effectively. And that's, we see people do weekly, monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, all sorts of different cadences. And, some are auction based, some are raffles, things like that. And then obviously, recurring giving, not only is the word the same, but, different ways of taking a donor, instead of giving me $100 at one event, can you give $10 each month? And, not only does it keep your name in their organization, but comes with the benefit of kind of revenue on hand overall. So we'll start with Noelle, because it's on the top of the screen. So we'll go in a second to the actual campaigns, but as we mentioned, so since 2019, Noelle's organization has done a monthly pop-up auction, and we will kind of look at it. And so Noelle, we'll start with you in terms of as we look at this, you guys have some great instructions and things like this, and I'll kind of try and put it overall. But for what you guys are doing, can you talk through how do you execute this, and what does that lift kind of look like for whether it's you or somebody on your team in terms of how you guys are pulling this off every month here?
Well, we have a very small team. We're a small organization. So everybody's wearing several hats. We have items come in, donated items come in on a regular basis. We aren't out soliciting specifically for the pop-up. Items come in, our volunteers keep an eye out all month long for items that would be good for the pop-up. It's a broad range, very broad range of items that come in. We photograph and we inventory the items, and one person's responsible for the photographs. Another one is responsible for the descriptions, and that was something that grew out by accident. We found we had a team member that was really cheeky and would come up with some great descriptions. So it's entertaining. Just the descriptions themselves are entertaining. And then I kind of work the back end. We roll it over every month, copy the campaign and roll it over. So our registered participants don't have to register again. They roll over, which is wonderful. We use the same keyword every month. We take it off of one campaign and add it to the next one. So we've had printed material, so the keyword stays the same, and then we do it again. We were very deliberate when we started, because we're so small. We were very deliberate to make this something that was manageable. That was big. We had to be able to manage the way it operated. It's open for 24 hours. It is driven by the close date, which is the first Thursday of every month. And we push on Facebook, and that's really, it's word of mouth and social media, and that's really all we have. And it grows every month.
That is very cool. This as a visual to what she was describing of great descriptions. I think this is a good one and creative, but you'd said something that I want to make sure I understood correctly is, so rather than each month come up with April auction, May, something like that, you have one constant URL that is the same. So if I'm a supporter or I want to spread the word to other people or things like that, I only ever have to remember, this information. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right. And the only time that becomes an issue is when we have our other events, and they have the participants have to enter the other keyword. If this is the last keyword they used, they don't automatically log into the other event. Like and we try to, 1 month a year, we don't have the pop-up, just so we don't step on the feet of our gala. There's a little breathing room there. But other than that, it's month after month, and we use the same keyword.
That is great practice. I know you, kind of last question I have on this, because it's something that we get, it's been a question since the beginning of time, but I think especially, since COVID, reared itself, is this kind of item distribution. But you made a point at the beginning, which I think is a very good one, is this also, it sounds like, let people discover you in a way where, okay, hey, now they know where we are, and they kind of get to put a face to us. And so I'm curious, like, has that, because you guys have been doing this for so long, in terms of the logistics of doing that kind of facilitation and collection stuff, I mean, is that, you guys put great instructions, but is that something that people get confused by, or does it seem like it's intuitive enough that most people kind of pick it up from the beginning?
It's intuitive, but every month we have someone that doesn't claim their items. And it is so funny. We have one guy that bids every month and he'll spend several $100s on items, never pick them up. And he knows the rules and he's been told you don't pick them up within X amount of days. Thank you for your donation. And he's okay with that, so we tried to be very specific about what the rules were. So but people have to read, and there's that, there's always that.
There is.
Right.
It's good to know that that's a constant, no matter where you might be geographically located, is that's a challenge universally. I think
It
is a good one. Okay, very cool. And as we switch gears here, so what's crazy is the two things we're about to talk about on its surface might seem very different, but actually are far more similar than I think they are different. Is, from Noelle and her team, doing a monthly auction is a way to kind of engage people and do some different things. Daniel, my friend's place, had starting in June of last summer, if I'm not mistaken, two separate kind of discussions that they did that are directly relevant to their organization and speaks to their constituent base and things like that. So did it back in the summer, and then also, kind of had a back-to-back, but then also had another one this past, just a few weeks back in February. And this, in terms of trends, we see this all of the time of people doing, whether it is things like this or having, a particular award recipient who might be featured at a gala maybe, but doing those kind of discussions and things. So, Dana, I guess I'm curious to ask you as you start is kind of what was the origin story of how did this come together of, hey, we want to have these discussions, and each organization, the topics they're going to discuss are obviously, specific to who they serve and things like that. But I'm curious, was this something that was hard to get off the ground or get people to buy into, or did it seem like everybody kind of understood, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve here?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful here maybe just to give a bit of background about like what My Friend's Place is, who we serve, and what we are as an organization. So we are a drop-in service center for youth experiencing homelessness in Hollywood. We've been around for 33 years. So we have a lot of experience working with this particular population, and have a really amazing community that's grown around us, and a really involved community that again, like I said earlier, likes to engage in different ways. And I think throughout, like I said earlier, right, like throughout our whole history, education and like bringing our community with us, and education, again, both for ourselves and for our community as we sort of learn and grow together, has been really, really important. And I think that's really mission driven. We know that that's how we're going to best serve the youth that we serve. And so one of the things that we've been working on for the past around 2 years now is an initiative we call our JEDI work. So JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And it is really taking a step towards codifying the social justice portion of our work, and really specifying that working with youth, that it's not a coincidence, like we said here, like youth homelessness is not colorblind, right? It's not a coincidence that homelessness very disproportionately affects youth of color, particularly Black youth. And as well as in the other panel that we did last year, youth with in the LGBTQ plus identifying spectrum. So, again, as part of this work that we're doing internally, of course, there's an internal JEDI training, as we like to call it. But again, it's really important to bring our community along with us. So as part of our learning, we wanted to highlight some amazing partners to talk about what is the intersection of systemic oppression and youth homelessness. And so this was, I think, a great way, again, not only to, I know I keep saying the same things, but to bring our community along with us, as well as to highlight some people in our community, some supporters, some staff members who could really speak to this and maybe answer some questions that our supporters may have had. So again, I think this was really integrated into our mission. So like putting the specifics of like, what does a virtual panel look like? How do we want to step into this space? That, for sure took some work, but I think, I think it was, it really felt relevant to what we were doing. Does that sort of make sense?
No, I think it does. And what's, especially I think makes sense at a lot of levels. And, that Jedi phrase might be one that I think a few folks piggyback off of going forward. But, I think it makes a lot of sense. And even, as Noelle, you mentioned with the auction items, they are to keep the engine moving. Those donations and solicitations are coming in. And Daniel, talking about the partners as a way of having those people be a part of the discussion. And obviously, it's one thing to just have a conversation, but if you're going to have some of these kind of more structured discussions in series or things of these natures, is you need subject matter experts or people who obviously can speak with an authenticity. And I think, just as an immediate parallel for myself, I think that is one thing that it's all under your community umbrella, whether it is sponsors who are providing, things, or people who, whether it's volunteers or board members who, their contribution could be leading some of these conversations. And I think, it's especially as we almost are forced to get creative with some of these things. I think, you make a very good point of using all the tools at your disposal, which is another common theme, and not pigeonholing yourself to it overall. And one of the questions I know that comes up with different discussion series and things like this is, do I sell tickets to it? Do I treat it like a street festival where, hey, you can come and we have a suggested donation? And we've seen a lot of different people do it a lot of ways. And obviously, again, I think authenticity is what matters most in things of this nature. But I'm curious for you guys, how you approach, is that something that was a consideration as you were, kind of whiteboarding these things out? And kind of what did that particular conversation stream look like?
Definitely. It was definitely a conversation. And I think one of the decisions that we made, one of the first decisions we made, again, when we were sort of in the process of, I would say the beginning is like, we know we want to do this thing. We think this is important. And then, the step after that is sort of who is it for in our community? So that's when we're figuring out, who do we think in our community is going to be interested in engaging with us this way and doing this learning? And I think as part of sort of that step and as that discussion, it was very clear to us right from the beginning that this is not something we want to treat as a fundraiser. We want this to be a free event that will live forever on our YouTube page, that people can access because we know that, people who know more about youth homelessness and some of the underlying causes are going to be better equipped to support My Friend's Place and to support our young people. So I think, yeah, it was, really, we didn't ask for ticket prices. We didn't ask for ticket purchases or require it. We did allow people to RSVP, which I think just whatever a virtual event you're doing or in person, just getting people those email reminders like really is super helpful in terms of people showing up. And then we didn't ask for donations. GiveSmart has a donation button, which is great. And we did both times receive something somewhere between, maybe $750 to $1,500 in donations. So not like a huge amount, but definitely something, just because I think our community, again, was just excited that we were doing this. So I think really not angling this as a fundraiser at all was super important to us as sort of setting the tone for what it was going to be and who it was going to be for.
And ours was, of course, as the leader of a nonprofit, to say that we don't always try to raise funds would be a misnomer for us, because every nonprofit out there is after the same thing, surviving and raising funds to fulfill your mission. But our pop-up auction was not, we knew it would not be a huge moneymaker. It just wasn't, that wasn't the main. I think eventually that'll take care of itself. But at the beginning, that was not the main focus. Yes, raise money, great. But engaging people that would not come to a gala, would not buy a ticket. And people, we tried to remove all barriers that we could, like we don't require the credit card to be on file. It's an option. And we were discouraged at the beginning by the staff at GiveSmart. They said, you really don't want to do that. But we did it anyway. And we found that it was good that people didn't feel trapped. You know, they could come, they could participate. They paid at the end, and it just worked for us. But it was not meant to be our big fundraiser. It just wasn't.
No, I think that is, you know, drawing a thread between both of your comments. There's removing barriers to entry and making the process as easy as you can make a process for people. And I think, you know, especially the RSVP and reminders, if I didn't have reminders to the nth degree, I don't know, I'd go anywhere or get anything done. But I think that and knowing your audience as well, and what are the things that is going to make a difference for them and kind of put it. And I think that is, you know, best practice just across the board. But I think in particular, some of the things you guys did and as well as, you know, from a fundraising standpoint is, you know, it didn't bring us the most, but doing it a little bit at a time, you know, that's another benefit, I think, of these type of efforts that are kind of more, you know, cyclical and can be done multiple times is, you know, you don't put all of your eggs almost in one basket, you know, in addition. And I think especially the, one of the common things I think we've heard from a lot of organizations is the ticket price analogy where, hey, you know, that might be somebody can't do it or they can't get a babysitter, whatever the case might be. And so by having it, hey, come as you are, and then, you know, whatever somebody might choose to do, I think puts it in a really great spot.
Sure.
And then, all right, so we'll get each of you to a moment to breathe here. So Susanna, I know, you know, as you've talked with people, all of the, you know, some of the other different types of recurring campaigns that we see here, all the ones that we look at here are ones that customers have graciously allowed us to share in the hopes that it can inspire people. Can you talk us through just at a high level some of the different kind of themes or things you're seeing in what we're looking at here on screen?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. And thank you to everyone who's allowed us to, you know, share and inspire other people. We really appreciate it. And yeah, and I love too this conversation because I think it just shows the power of being able to use a subscription and really use a tool to do a lot of different things, right? And that's exactly what I'm about to show is all these different types of things people have been able to do here. And I'll start with the bingo in the bottom right corner. I've actually been able to attend one of these, and they've just published their 9th bingo coming out. And we have a jam session on it as well if you want to learn all the background here, but it's $20 to join, $10 for an additional card. Every time they do it the same, and they actually have a drag queen who is the, you know, MC who leads them through. But they have done an incredible job to keep this extremely family friendly. And it is a fundraiser for them. They have figured it out down to a science on how to do these. So I highly encourage just taking a moment to listen to that quick 15-minute conversation that I know just got put in the chat if you're interested in doing a bingo or such and trying it for the first time. So fun. Like I cannot emphasize enough. I really think this was maybe one of the most fun nights in 2021 that I have had, was attending this event. So if you're curious about it at all, go in, check it out, and support a nonprofit and go join one of these, go watch, go support. That's fantastic. So that's the bingo that they're doing, and they really do it around the holidays for the most part. And the drag queen gets fully dressed up and all of that, and it's just so fun. They have competitions with costumes and themes and incentives for people to join and prizes and such. That's one. The St. Catherine of Siena School is above that with the monthly raffle. This is fantastic. They use the same campaign, so they don't have to recreate campaigns at all. And every month they put a raffle up. They allow people to purchase it. I want to say it's all different types depending on these items that you see here, the cost for them. But one that I think is really cool is that lottery ticket basket. It's about $200 right worth of lottery ticket scratches off, and I saw that someone purchased 20 tickets here, right, which is like half of the cost that it took to go get that lottery basket put together. And I just think this is so smart, something that a lot of people can do. And go in your closet, go in the organization's closet, see if you can put together a swag bag and raffle it off once a month, right, or whatever those donations are that you may have left over from your auction or whatever that is. I think this is a really tangible takeaway there. And then a few other that I'll just quickly run down on that slide, Patrick. Sorry about that. So a few other ones just to point out. So the live stream one, the Richmond Performing Arts Alliance is great. What they've done is they did a 4-series part, and they put it up all together so people could see what those live stream performances would be. And they were able to purchase tickets in advance, save the date, put it on your calendar, and they did performances that were live streamed. I just think this was so fantastic, and it looks like they've really got a lot of great stuff out of that. And I'll stop there, but there's a virtual wine or tequila tasting, as you can see, some poker events that we're seeing going on, a lot of wine tastings out there. Some really creative stuff that people are partnering with organizations and such to do these.
That's very cool. We've had a few questions come in here. So, and as a reminder, please keep sending them all over. And Kathy's doing a great job of getting some stuff over to our way. So, the first question is answer for the person is to clarify that all of the examples, both of what we showed with Daniel and Noelle and their organizations, as well as the ones Susanna covered, are ones that people have done multiple times. So in case you missed the beginning, the focus of today really is on things and trying to give some ideas of things that you can do, whether it's 2 or 3 times in a short time frame, or whether it's something monthly or different things like this, or also some of the times it's making sure your organization knows, hey, we're in a position that we could do something like this, or you can respond to things that maybe happen in the moment, within the news or impact your community. But then the kind of Noelle, somebody had asked a question, I think you mentioned it, but just to make sure, is so in terms of getting the items and things to sell on a monthly basis, can you talk through just a little bit at a high level, kind of what that process looks like? And I think you had said you guys aren't necessarily soliciting, but could you give a little bit of information, just kind of how those items arrive to you all?
So we're a community furniture bank, and we are driven by donations of gently used furniture and household items. So things come in every day. The vast majority of the items are used in our programming to give to families that are transitioning from homelessness. But we get quirky, non-specific to our program items, and we set those items aside, and we determine if they are, I don't want to say good enough, if they are specific enough to be in our pop-up auction. We look for quality, we look for different themes. It varies from, time of the year. We're just constantly on the lookout for the pop-up items. And so we may get an item in this month, but not use it until 3 months from now in the pop-up, because it may not fit in the particular theme. I hate to use the word theme, but around Christmas time, we have Christmassy things, So they're donated to us in conjunction to donations of furniture and household items. And we're just using those items in a different format rather than for programming, because our programming use is very specific. We're very specific about what our families need and what they get. A designer handbag is not necessarily useful to our clients, but if we can morph it into money to buy a mattress, well, then our clients need a mattress, So things just come in. They just manna from heaven is all I can tell you. They just show up.
And
Yeah,
you have some
that is
major
great.
fans in the chat right now. And
What?
yeah, some major fans right now. And the question is, what was your coolest item that you've ever got? Sorry, I had to jump in. It's too good.
Well, we've had some designer handbags that were that were fun, and we had this one. It sounds hideous when I describe it, but we had this one wing chair that had been recovered in this red glittery vinyl, and we called it Elvis Has Left the Building. It sold 3 times. Someone bid it, won it, donated it back. We ran it again, bid it, won it again. I mean, it's just, you just never know what we're going to have. And that's half the fun of it, you know, is seeing what's going to be in the pop-up the next month, because there's some quirky stuff. We get some quirky stuff.
That is great. And then Daniel, I think this is a good question. Somebody had asked, you know, as we kind of showed these examples of the conversations you guys did, is it correct? Did you get, in terms of the actual, these discussion series and things like that, did you guys have them on Zoom, streamed, or do you talk a little bit about kind of how the actual conversations themselves were delivered?
Definitely. Yeah. So I use Zoom. I think it's simple. It's pretty easy. And I think one of the things for live streams, right, is just like, as much as you can simplify, like simplify. And so, you know, most panelists are familiar with Zoom, especially after this year. So that's, you know, just sending out that link. It's very easy to connect Zoom to YouTube. And YouTube integrates pretty easily into whatever other platforms you want, whether it's GiveSmart. I really appreciate that we could just, I mean, you see on the screen, someone could just go to, you know, the keyword URL and just watch it there. Or, you know, on our Facebook, or, you know, we can put the link on our Instagram. So I think just keeping it simple is really great. And it's just doing a little bit of coaching sometimes with panelists beforehand to make sure, you know, you can see your face. If you have a dog, that the dog is going to be chill, which, I mean, obviously you can never control that, right? But like, you know, and we've actually had some great times where one of our directors had her dog just made a special appearance. It was amazing. So, you know, just trying to make sure that things run as technically smoothly and as simply as possible. There's no need to get fancy, in my opinion.
No, that is cool. And this is more just my own question is, so you had it on Zoom, the actual kind of conversations were held via Zoom, and then because Zoom's a pretty efficient company, then you were able to kind of take that recording, put it onto your guys' YouTube channel, and then from there, whether it's embedding or sharing the URL, it lives within YouTube. You kind of do with it, like with it what you will. Is that correct?
No, so actually we live stream to YouTube.
Okay, got it.
So Zoom has a pretty simple live streaming interface that's built in. I think you need a pro account to do it. I'm sure you need a pro account to do it. But it's quite easy to set up. I am by no means a technological master or whiz or anything like that, but even I could do it. Yeah, so I think it's pretty straightforward. And yeah, the YouTube live streaming integrations are very easy. And I think, again, it depends on like what audience you're going for. YouTube is a pretty neutral one. Pretty much everybody uses YouTube. If you were trying to reach out to younger people, like Twitch might be a better option, or Instagram, depending on what it is. I don't think a panel discussion necessarily is appropriate for Instagram if it has more than 2 panelists. But yeah, just doing a little bit of research about, like, you know, segmenting who you're talking to and then what the best way to reach them is. But YouTube, I think, is you know, pretty standard across the board.
I think to just add to that, Dan, something that you guys did really well, which we sort of touched on, but taking that live stream and making sure that your GiveSmart page is updated with that video or has whatever it is, and also just leaving a donation section available so that you can continue to send out that link and get people back to it to continue to watch it. And it doesn't have to be like a one-time thing, right? Like, it's not a one-time live stream event and you move on from it like a gala would be, but utilizing that homepage to get people back and drive engagement continuously. and leaving that donation option there. We've seen a lot of success by continuing engagement and still increasing donations post event or post live stream as well. Just kind of throwing that in there.
Definitely. And I think it's like, it can't be overstated how valuable it is to use GiveSmart as a splash page. I mean, to have a place for this to live, like even virtual events, I really believe need a virtual home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a place to return to. And yeah, I mean, I think that GiveSmart is the simplicity and just the ability, obviously, to use the keyword. I love what Noelle said about like having the same keyword for each event. That's brilliant. Looking forward to stealing that and using it in our own efforts.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I mean, it's pretty invaluable.
That is great. And I think kind of building that with our last topic, which intentionally we didn't make the longest section because it's one that can go so many ways and is really unique. But kind of as we were talking about some of the things as we've talked about throughout the course of this call of, you know, if your organization is looking at doing something, you know, on a continuous basis or things, you know, what are some of those kind of considerations? So the ones that really stuck out, you know, are making sure that you don't cannibalize other initiatives, and whether those are engagement based or revenue based. You know, if during the summer is when your organization typically does something, might not be necessarily then that best time to launch a new program, something like that, as well as donor burnout. So, you know, doing something weekly versus monthly versus bi-monthly based upon your constituent base and truly kind of coming back to knowing your audience, as well as the, this is my all-time favorite metric or matrix rather, but what is the level of effort, you know, compared to the return on the investment? And if it you know, especially if something is, you know, fundraising based and really, okay, hey, we're going to try and draw revenue versus even if it's not, okay, are we going to engage people? If it's just a conversation between two people, but we have 10,000, is that the right thing to do? As well as I think, you know, consistently, I think Daniel and Noelle in your own ways hit this part, you know, very, very well stated, is just making sure that whatever you do, it's mission consistent and it's focused and it's, you know, it's authentic to your organization in doing. And so, you know, I'm curious, really for any of the three of you, in addition to the 4 things kind of we showed on the screen, are there other things that, whether it's learned behaviors from doing some of this stuff or seeing people do it, that resonate, or just kind of other advice or tips you would give to people who are maybe looking to do something new, or maybe convince their boss to let them try the idea they have to do some of these things, and anything that you'd bestow to folks listening to us?
Not to be afraid.
Yeah, completely agree.
I think that sums it up, right? I mean, this whole past year, right? Like, we've had billions of curveballs thrown at us, and I think just kind of, you know, rolling with it, and yeah, seeing what you can do, and I think trusting that your community loves you, I think is something that's been important to us. It's like that they will respond, right? They want opportunities to engage, and like when you provide them, they'll respond, you know.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I think too, something that I'm working on right now on the board that I'm on is we're asking ourselves, how can we include the people that we serve? How can we get them involved in kind of these different mission, you know, and different streams of engagement that we're doing right now? And we're thinking about like having the people we serve cook a dinner and have people once a month be able to like drive through, see our organization and pick up dinner for their family, right? So just kind of thinking about the people that you serve, the community that's around, and where are the gaps right now, whether that's engagement or funds or wherever that gap is. What can you do to just try something new? And I saw a question come through of how GiveSmart is connected. I mean, with a subscription, you can try as many campaigns as you want, right? You can create a monthly one, you can create just one, whatever that is. But trying something, you know, it can be as low as lift as a one-time raffle with a lottery ticket, or it can be as high as lift of getting a bunch of sponsors and doing a whole festival, right? That's really up to you, but I guess what's the worst that could happen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. No, that is a beautiful thing. And as we kind of wrap up here, we've got a busy calendar coming up of different events and stuff like this. We are excited to be one of the sponsors for the Salesforce Nonprofit Summit that is coming up next week. We actually have another webinar talking about one of the things we loosely alluded to, which is recurring giving, and some different strategies. And then again, as we mentioned at the top, this week in this episode was about recurring campaigns, things you can do, consistently or multiple times. We'll talk about the other side of the coin next week with single campaigns. And then at the end of the month, kind of building some of the live stream kind of things we talk about with that, what's kind of virtual and hybrid and what those trends look like. So with that, Daniel, Noelle, Susanna, thank you so much. I mean, we've gotten a lot of comments and people who had to leave or something that wanted us to tell you thank you. And so we'll make sure that you guys see those, but truly can't thank you guys enough, not only for sharing your time with us, but, to you and your teams for, taking the chance and in doing some of these things and really being ahead of the curve and sharing that wisdom in the hopes it can help others. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With that, we thank you guys for listening here today. At the end, you're going to see a survey. If you could please take a few moments, we want to make sure that these episodes and all the content we deliver are things that matter and don't just take up time. So if you could please take a moment, give us your feedback, we would appreciate it. And with that, we hope you have a great rest of the day.